So here's where I'm really curious. Tell me about how you viewed the world before you met the three principles, and how you view the world now.
This is Hebrew Hits presented by jtriberadio.com. I'm your host, Malia, and I sit down with people who live by the motto, it's what you do with what you have that makes a difference.
Well, you sent that question to me before we started, and I reflected on it myself, and I found like, well, how did I view the world? How do I view the world? And I don't remember how I viewed the world before. I know that there's a
Oh
Torah
man.
perspective that uh, the Torah perspective is that we're here to be we're given this opportunity of life in every scenario that arises in order to take it and define it by planting the flag of God and fulfilling His
Okay.
will in each and every scenario, and that ultimately this world will culminate in a revelation of Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, and that's something
Mhm.
that was true before I'd learned the principles, and it's true even now. But with regards to how I experienced the world,
I want
that's
to
not
know. I need to know this.
how my personal experience, my personal reality before I learned the principles was one of uh, a disgust, disappointment, frustration, uh, just regularly on edge, just a few
Oh
steps
wow.
away from being angry. That was just everything. Uh, I was either waiting for something to start, or I was waiting for something to finish, so that I could finally feel at ease, or I was waiting for someone to stop misbehaving, or I was waiting for someone to behave, or I was just waiting for the world so that I could be okay.
Wow. So why did you feel that way? Like you had something going on in your life, or just that's how you felt you were born with those traits?
Oh no, I'm just remembering that was kind of my stance. There was a lot of my own well-being that I outsourced and I kind of sent off to China. Waiting for I gave it away for other people to determine whether I could have well-being, and that took its toll. That took its
Wow.
toll. But today, I can see that well-being or the feeling of just being okay, not just being okay, but there is a capacity within a human being, independent of anything that they've gone through or anything that they are currently in. There's a
Hmm.
capacity to not just feel okay, but to feel perfect, to feel
Someone could feel perfect.
someone could feel like a baby being held in its mother's arms. Like that's
Tell me everything.
well, if there was some if there was some way, and I'm not saying that I've achieved this feeling or that I've
Hmm.
found it, but if there was some way that all the meaning that we bring to the world, all the definitions that we have for stuff, all
Hmm.
the things that we've decided things mean, if all that somehow fell away, what would be left, what would emerge is simply feelings of love. I'm not talking about a love that I love something because it's doing it for me, but a
Okay.
love of like a river overflowing its banks. It would just pour out of you. A well-being or just a sense of serenity that you don't need a thing in the world to change, that you're perfectly okay, that there's a place that resides not outside of you, not by the acquisition of any type of status or achievement or
Uh-huh.
financial you know an amount of money in your bank account. It's just an inherent quality that resides deep within you that only gets covered up by virtue of our own misunderstanding. Now, I never knew that existed before I learned the principles. And so I
Yeah.
never even knew to look for it. I never knew to rely on it. I never knew that resilience is not something that we need to build, but just like the body heals a wound,
Hmm.
I never knew that the mind heals itself. I never knew that. Just keep it clean and it'll heal itself. I
How do you keep it clean though? Like, how do you get the thoughts out of your head? How does that happen?
it's not a matter of keeping the thoughts out of your head. It's a matter of waking up again
Uh-huh.
and again and again to the simple fact that our experience derives from a source that's from outside of the universe and is not deriving from the world around us. Each time I find myself blaming you for how I feel, let's say, each time I'm in that experience, she's making me feel good. She's asking me questions. She thinks I'm a great guy. She thinks I'm some guru or something. All right.
Yeah.
Each time I attribute my feeling to you, yeah,
Right.
uh, I, in essence, am making a statement of I need you to do what you're doing in order to feel good, or I need you to stop doing what you're doing so I can feel good. Each time I remember that it doesn't work that way. Each time I have the insight or the reawakening to the fact that my well-being is innate. It's a part of me. Uh, I'm free of all of that, and the
Uh-huh.
mind settles down and it just kind of deals with life and does whatever needs to be done. I got to put food on the table. I gotta
Yeah.
gotta go to davening. I gotta, I gotta help my neighbor with his flat tire. Whatever it is, you do what you need to do. But the the each time that gets sorted, the mind settles down, and you'll find yourself unfolding in a much more appropriate way.
Thank you so much for explaining even further, because now that you explained it in that way, it makes a lot of sense. And I now I'm starting to understand it even more. What I want to get to are, what are the three principles? You keep talking about the three principles. So I
Sure.
made sure not, I wanted to be surprised during the episode. So I was like, I'm going to research everything, but I'm not researching what the three principles are because I need to know, hear from you.
Okay. I'm going to give you the long answer, so buckle yourself in. Okay.
Okay, let's buckle it up. I'm ready.
The most important thing to understand before I tell you what the three principles are by name is that they are a metaphor.
Okay,
That's
let's take
very
this
important to
slow.
know. Okay. What I mean by
Okay.
that is that the three principles are an attempt to describe or point to something that can only be realized in your own heart, in your own mind. Okay. So I'll give you the metaphor, but don't get lost in the metaphor. Look for what the metaphor is pointing to.
And you're saying that these are three the metaphors, right? And each person will apply in a different way to their
Uh,
personal experiences.
Not quite. I'm saying that I'm going to give you a metaphor that's going to show you that there's a fundamental principle or there's a
Okay.
paradigm behind life itself that's always been true. It doesn't need you to make it true. It doesn't need you to know about it for it to be true. It just is.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to describe that to you using words to metaphorize it because there aren't words in the English language or any language to perfectly capture what it is.
Okay.
However, you can get a sense of it, and then you'll have your own metaphor. This is our metaphor.
Okay. I'm excited.
The three principles are referred to as mind, consciousness, and thought. Another way to refer to these three principles is universal mind, universal consciousness, and universal thought. Another way to refer to these three principles is divine mind, divine consciousness, and divine thought. The reason why I give you three different titles is because I want to highlight for you that when I use the word mind, I'm not talking about brain. When I use the word
Oh,
consciousness, I'm not talking about mindfulness or your focus. When I talk about thought, I'm not talking about the thoughts in your mind or the ideas that you know or the thoughts that you think. I'm talking about something universal, something divine, something not divine as in holy or but divine as in not of this world. Divine means it's pre-worldly. These are
okay.
three forces or three elements that come together to create everything psychologically. They create the entire spectrum of all experience ever had by a human being since the beginning of time through today, from the beginning of life, from the moment an infant comes out of the womb until a a person passes away. Every felt experience exists for that individual via these three principles.
Okay.
If you were to take away one of the three principles, you won't end up with a broken experience or a fuzzy one. You'll end up with nothing,
Oh,
zero.
wow.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
The first principle, universal mind or divine mind or mind, refers to an infinite energy that exists before the universe takes any type of form, and that same energy takes on the form of life. So it manifests in a particular form. If these words sound too, I don't know, hoity-toity, whatever it is, just kind of picture in your mind a another metaphor of a computer. You've got data inside the computer tower, so to speak,
Mhm.
whatever the official term is. There's data in there. It's nothing per se. It's all in potential. But that same data manifests on your screen by changing the pixelation so that a different picture emerges on your screen. That energy is the energy of a divine mind. And if you kind of picture in your mind an energy that is nothing at first, but then it turns into a form, that would be the principle of divine mind.
Okay, hold on.
That if
Maybe a little bit simpler now. A little bit
okay,
simpler.
if you're looking at an experience, Tzvi is happy. Okay,
Okay.
where did that come from? What is that? That is the form that a divine energy has taken. It has cascaded down into me. It has it's this infinite energy that could be anything, and it turned into this one for me. Now for you, it can turn into a different feeling, a different experience. It's the same system for everyone, but it all starts with this divine energy. This divine
Okay.
energy suffuses and creates and sustains everything and anything. If something exists, it must be sourced in this divine energy and sustained by this energy. It's the same energy, just one's before form and one's in form.
So
Okay?
then I'm a little confused here. So if it's all divine mind, universal mind, or mind, it all comes from here, and then you have that, like you said, like Svi is happy.
Where did you point to? Did you say it points? You said it all comes from here? Oh,
Is
no,
that
no,
what you
no.
said?
It comes from
Oh,
here.
higher up? Oh, higher up.
Somewhere out there, somewhere outside the universe.
Okay, so let's say Malia is happy, right? So it came from here. Malia is happy. Malia is sad. Malia is anxious. Malia is angry. So once that happens, that means I don't have control over that because it's happening.
That's absolutely true. Once you've gotten that program or that code, that software code for that moment, you will feel it. It's there's nothing more powerful
Mhm.
than that concept. That is the principle of thought. Is that that code was programmed by the divine for you, and it must turn into the feeling that you now feel. And once you try doing something about it, it's too late. It's already happened. Yes, you
Oh,
felt it
so
already.
if I'm like, Malia's happy from here, Malia's sad, once I acknowledge this came from a divine mind, universal mind, let's just make sure I'm getting this correct. Once you acknowledge and accept that, you're more calm because you're like, oh, someone else didn't do this. It happened because it was from this up here.
Yeah, there is a lot of that happens. That there's to a degree, what you're starting to point to is one of these implications is that people start relating. We call it flat earth thinking. People stop
Mhm.
relating to the world as if it's flat. It's not coming from out there, folks. It's coming from a much higher source, a divine source, an incredibly spiritual source that can barely be described, if at all. We could just get a glimpse of it, maybe. But getting that sorted is huge. If it's true, of course, if you can insightfully see it. Don't take my word
Mhm.
for it. But if you can see that that's true, not just for some feeling, but for all feeling, for everything you've ever experienced, that is like going from a flat earth belief to a round earth. It changes the way you relate to your world. It changes the actions that you take. It changes the way that you look out at your universe or your world. It
Mhm.
changes the way you relate to the feelings that you have.
Yeah.
Now, we kind of muddled it together, but the divine energy is the principle of mind that sustains all things, but this principle of thought is that there's this divine thought or this divine program code that turns into the feeling that is now available for you to have. That's the principle of thought. If you take that principle away, if there's nothing to transform the divine energy into a feeling, you're not going to have any feelings. You must have that as a principle. The
Okay.
third principle is the principle of consciousness, which is the principle of you need to be alive and awake to the feeling that's coming to you. If you're not awake, if you're not alive, you can't have an experience either. So you have those three elements come together and account for all experience. It does not take away from you your freedom of choice of what you
Okay.
choose to, where you choose to focus your brain, or what you choose to say, or what you choose to do. That's still yours.
Right.
But the feeling that you have is from such a sublime place, uh, that your relationship to it is not one of, uh, hey, how come you're doing this to me? But there's a recognition that you're a part of something much larger, uh, much more divine, much more true. There's truth in every feeling, not
Mhm.
truth in the sense that it's telling you something about your world, but it's telling you something about you. And
Right.
all experience is waking you up to the fact that you are connected to the divine. Even the
Mhm.
lowest, most disgusting feelings are evidence that you are connected to a divine source. uh, and there's
And the mind is
implications
the
with that as
first.
well.
And the mind, this is the first one. Then this is the second. And then when you are at accepting it and understanding it is the third.
Well, it depends what you mean by accepting.
Because it's all together. Like
Yeah.
you're what you're saying, which I'm very happy that you're talking about this divine mind, because from what I was getting at is that okay, Tzvi is always calm, he's always happy, he has no pain,
No.
no anger, no anxiety, because he does the three principles and it just wow, it changes the entire life of becoming you become calm. But what you're saying is that you still have a divine from the divine mind. You could have, let's say you could get angry, you could still get angry. But once you acknowledge that there's a divine thought and divine consciousness, then that allows you to be more calm within the anger that you are experiencing.
In a way, I just want to clarify one thing.
Mhm.
You don't have to, in order for this to work, you don't need to accept anything or acknowledge anything.
Oh, really? Okay, so let's talk about that then.